Hello and welcome to Craft with Sarah and day 11 of the Christmas Craft Countdown, where I'm sharing 20 Christmas-themed Cricut projects in 20 days. Half the projects are designed by me and half are guest designer projects from some of my crafting friends. Today's project is one of mine, and it's this incredible giant nativity sign, which measures a whopping 28 inches wide. This is an off-the-mat project, which means that it's bigger than a Cricut machine can cut, but the bottom pieces all come in sections, so you can stick them together to create the super-sized design. So despite the huge size, it can still be cut on a regular-sized Cricut machine from A4, US letter, or 12 by 12 inch cardstock on a regular 12 by 12 cutting mat. What I especially love about this giant sign is that all of the nativity characters are made as their own stand-alone layered designs, so you could use them on other projects too, such as greetings cards and shadow boxes. What do you think? Will you take up this super-sized challenge? Let's get started. The files for this project are free for the next 24 hours. Here's how to download them. First, register a free ticket for the Christmas Craft Countdown at craftwithsarah.com/Christmas23. Click any of the buttons on the page and enter your name and email to register. If you're already registered, check for an email from me with subject line Christmas Craft Countdown ticket information, or any of the other emails from me that you have been sent throughout the countdown. Can't find them? Check your junk or spam box to see if they've gone there by mistake. These emails contain the link to view the countdown projects and download today's files. Scroll down the page to find today's project. Click the button to start the files automatically downloading to your computer or mobile device. Each download is only available for free for 24 hours after it goes live. If you've missed some, check out the Instant Access Bundle at craftwithsarah.com/Christmas23 bundle, which gives immediate and ongoing access to all of the files from the Christmas Craft Countdown, plus loads of extra bonus designs. All downloads come in zip folders. You need to unzip them before you can upload the files into Cricut Design Space. Once you've downloaded and unzipped the folder, it's time to get the files into Cricut Design Space. Open up Design Space and start a new project, and then go into Upload over on the left, and then Upload Image. You can then either click Browse to find the files on your computer, or drag and drop it in. Make sure you choose the unzipped version of the folder, and then the file to select is the one which starts SVG in the file name. Click and drag that in, and it might give you a warning that says, wow, that's a large image. It really is a large image, so it might take a little while to upload. But here it is once it gets there. This is what it should look like, and then press Upload. Again, it might take a while because this is a very big image. Click on it to get the green border and then press Add to Canvas. And here it is. So it should load in at just about 28 inches. If you want to, you can click on the number and just make it a nice round 28, but it doesn't really matter. And if you look down the layers panel, this is all of the pieces. This is not a project for the faint-hearted, and you're going to need a lot of cardstock to make it. It's still going, but the reason I'm scrolling down is to show you that when you get to the bottom, you see the very large pieces are split up into different sections, and that's how we're able to make something 28 inches wide on a regular-sized Cricut mat. If you've got the Cricut Venture, the really fancy super large Cricut machine, you could select all of these layers, pieces, and weld them together using Combine and then Weld. If you've got the super sized cardstock, then you could do that. But I don't have a Cricut Venture, and so I'm going to be doing it in the different sections and sticking it together. I'll just zoom out here so you can see the finished design. It's so lovely. And as I said in the intro, I really like that all the characters can be made individually. So if you just wanted to do, for example, an angel, you could delete everything else and just keep the angel layers. There's nothing else actually to do in Design Space. We can just click make it, and then you're probably going to have a little bit of a cry at how many sheets you're going to need. So this shows some of those bottom layers cut into sections. It's got these shapes on it, which will make it easier to line up. I'll go through all of that later on in this video. But if you scroll down, let's see how many it is. Can you make a guess? Where am I going to stop? Da, da, da. Still going. And it is 64 sheets of 12 by 12 inch cardstock. And of course, if you want to, you can change the paper size to something smaller. This design should cut at this size from A4 paper if you want to use A4. If you're using US letter, then you'll need to resize it a little bit smaller to 26 inches wide, just because otherwise some of those bits are a little bit too big for US letter. So on all of these, you can change the size and it should let you do them to A4. What you can do, if I just change this one, is you can drag and drop things around to use up less space on the cardstock. Not so much for these ones because these is all the big pieces, but this is a good example. So this has put these two tiny bits of white on their own sheet, but if you click the three little dots and then move object, make sure you choose the same colour. Look at all of them, and then confirm. That's moved that onto this one. And I'll do the same with that one other bit here. Let's move that too. And confirm. And just make sure nothing overlaps. And now we have got one sheet down that we won't need to cut anymore. So go ahead and have a little play with all of your mats and get it looking how you want. And then press continue to connect to your Cricut and follow the on-screen instructions to get everything cut out from cardstock. Fair warning, when I cut it, it took just over 2.5 hours. So I would go and grab a cup of tea, maybe a snack, and put a movie on and settle in for the long haul. But once it's all cut out, I'll show you how to stick it together. Here's my giant sign all cut out, and I've laid all the bits on top of each other to check that I'm happy with all the colours and that I've got everything. And I do this on just a random piece of wood. It's actually part of an old bit of IKEA furniture that I've just put some marble paper on so it's pretty. But it's really helpful if you do have something like this that you can put the sign together on just to check that you're happy with it all. But if you don't, then what I'd recommend doing at least is to get each of the individual figures sections together and put them in different piles, and then also get together the pieces of the stable and the sky. Just put them in piles so that you know what you've got to go where. It'll be much easier if you've got your pieces kind of in some sort of order that makes sense to you before you get started. I'm going to be sticking my giant sign together with a combination of glue and foam squares. The glue I'm using is called Collall, which I like because it doesn't bend or wrinkle the cardstock like other glues can do, and I put it into these needle tip applicator bottles. If you can't find Collall, Bearly Art Glue or Art Glitter Glue are wonderful alternatives. And then to add some depth and dimension, we'll be using foam squares. These are the ones I'm using. They're a bit bigger than the ones I would normally use, but the design's a bit bigger than I would normally do. So rather than fuss about the teeny tiny squares, I've got some a little bit bigger. But it doesn't really matter what size you've got, because if they're too big, you can cut them smaller. Normally with my giant signs, I start with the bottom and put all of the pieces together before building up the layers on top. However, this one is designed slightly different because all of the characters come together as their own stand-alone layer designs. So if you wanted to, you could use them on their own without putting them all together as the giant sign. So what I'm going to do for this one instead is assemble the characters first, and then we'll put the rest of the sign and the background together at the end. So I'm going to just move this out the way. There we go. And then we'll start with the one that's closest to me, which is the donkey. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so that you can see him easier. I'm sorry if you can hear any weird noise on the track. It is absolutely pouring down with rain at the moment, so you might be able to hear that a little bit in the background. But we will push through and hope it's not too bad. Okay, so let's see what we've got with this little donkey. Here we go. The bottom two layers are this grey one and then this one to go on top for his mane. And this one, because it's got the little hole, should I glue it or foam it? I think I'm going to foam it because I want this sign to have so much dimension on it. Be really, really 3D and beautiful. Here are my foam squares. I have got a pack of my smaller ones with me as well for any little narrow bits like that bit in his ear. And when you're adding the foam, make sure that as well as putting stuff around the edges, you also have some in the middle areas of the card, just to make sure it's got a really good firm base to it, so you're not going to get any sagging of the card if it doesn't have enough support. This video is going to be a long one, so well done if you make it all the way to the end. Alright, line that one up. Where does it go? There, so I'm using the mane and also the face to line it up. And then gently drop down. And the reason for that is that if it's not quite lined up, which mine isn't, you can move it really easily because it's not actually stuck yet, and then reposition it where you want it to go. Okay, next I've got this one, and I think I'll glue this one. Remember, you've got the assembly guide when you come to sticking yours together. I don't have that yet because I make them after I've recorded the videos so that I can see how I stuck everything together. So you can print that out, which I really do recommend, and then use that to know which bits to put together in which order. I'm also going to glue this bit on to make up that front part of the donkey. The assembly guide might be in a slightly different order to what I'm doing in this video. So perhaps maybe the donkey's not first, or whichever one I do next isn't the one that appears next in the assembly guide. But it doesn't actually matter the order that you make the characters in, because we're going to do them all separately. They're all separate pieces, so it just doesn't matter. Let's glue his hooves on. One there. One there. And then for his bridle, this will be glued on because it's really quite thin. You'll just about be able to see where it goes because there's these two little knobbly bits in his head and also the bit around the nose. I'll turn this upside down. This is where the needle tip bottles come in. Very helpful because I can get in that really easily. And then carefully stick it on. Don't push down too hard because you don't want the glue to smush out the sides. Just do a gentle little push down. And for this little bit on his back, whereabouts does that line up? I think it's going to cover the tip of that bridle a bit, so I'll do that with some foam. Just one piece. Oh, turned it upside down now. Just follow the back. I think it's about there. There we go. And that's one character done out of many. So I'll put him over to one side. And next I'm going to just work in the order of what's closest to me. So next we have the shepherd with his sheep. Pull some of these bits apart. Here we go. Alright, so we've got a little circle here which will stick over the eye gap in the bottom layer. Turn the bottom layer upside down, just add a little bit of glue around the eye and stick that to it. There we go. Now I've put a bit too much glue on there, so now this is probably going to end up sticking to my work surface. But it's fine. You could always just wait for it to dry before you turn it over. Next is this layer for his jacket. I'm just going to double check how this builds. I think I'm going to foam this layer because this is what his beard ends up sitting on, and I'd like the beard to be out a bit from the face. I'm going to use my little foam squares to add some in the hook. It's probably a more technical name for it. Staff, maybe? Not sure. But the reason that I'm adding this in is that if there was nothing in there, this bit here is not going to stay level with the rest of it. It would just kind of fall downwards and touch here, which isn't necessarily a problem. It just means that your 3D effect isn't as good. And I really want this to pop out, so it's worth adding those extra little bits, in my opinion. Let's get this lined up. And again, gently drop down. That's not quite right. There we go. When you are adding the foam to the staff, make sure none of it pokes out around the edge. That bit is just on the edge in there. Don't know if you can see. But if it pokes out, it means you'll be able to see it, which we don't really want. And next is his little beard piece, which goes on like that, and this will be glued. There. Don't worry, that looks a little bit weird because we'll be covering it up now, and this is another glue layer. Lovely. Okay, next is his staff. And again, I'll glue this one because I'm mindful that we don't want it to come out more than, say, the other different characters. And there weren't that many layers in the donkey, so we'll keep him... Oops, that wasn't very clever, was it? I just got glue everywhere. I don't think you saw. I think it may have been off camera. I shouldn't have said anything. That's that one. For his hand, a little bit of foam. Straight on there. that one there. And next we've got the bottom of the sheep, and this is another layer with a little circle to go behind to cover the eye. And then the whole thing will be glued. Glue or foam? Glue, I think. And then I'm going to foam the wool to look like it's coming out away from the face. And then the bottom wool layer will foam. Next I've got this detail layer, adding a little bit of pattern into the wool. You can leave that off if you don't want to have it. If you prefer it plain, then you can just leave this one. But I am all about a bit of pattern, so we'll put it on. Okay, and then finally is his arm. And I think I'm going to glue it because this is already quite a long way out from the body, and I think if there's another foam layer it might not look very realistic. It will look too far out, like he's got a really big arm. So we'll glue these. There, and then I almost forgot, because it's white on my white background, there's also this little bit just to go along his head. Just glue that one on. And our shepherd is now all finished. We've got the donkey and the shepherd done. Next we'll move on to the Mary and Joseph image and the baby Jesus. Here's the next section we'll be sticking together. Again, we need to break this apart so that we're at the bottom. Let's move these. And our very bottom are these two pieces. And to start with, this one will be glued on. There. And next, oh, actually I've not done that very well, have I? Let's just line that up a bit better. Next is this one here, and I'll do this one as a, ooh, not sure actually. Let's see, how does that one look? I think I will glue this one and foam the next one. Glue that one, and now we'll foam this one. There. Next is this dark brown layer, which I'm going to glue. After that is this blue layer, another glue one. Next up, we've got the last kind of big bit of blue, and I'll foam this one. glue the staff layer onto the top. And now we've just got the little details to do. For his hand, I'll glue that one. Glue. I keep doing that at the moment. I say glue and I'm picking up the foam squares. I meant foam. We're foaming that one and then gluing his sleeve on top. Goodness me. Like that. And for the manger, foam this one. Nearly said it wrong again. And then there are 2 layers for the straw. There's a goldy one, this one will be foamed, and then the detail layer on top will be glued. Here's the foam one, like that. I've used half a sheet already. I'm definitely going to need another pack. And then glue the detail layer on top. Okay, for Mary, lots of little pieces here. To start, turn it upside down, add some glue around the eye, and then stick on the little circle, and then I think glue this piece. I think that will look right. That one. And then this one I will add some foam to give a little bit of depth around the baby's face. Did I just say glue again? I can't remember what I just said. I have a feeling I said glue again, but I meant foam. Judge by what I'm doing, maybe, not what I'm saying. Okay. Next is her arm. And, oh, actually, no, next there's a tiny little bit of detail to go in the top here. Just that little bit. There we go. Now we've got this bit. I think we'll foam this. I said foam, and I'm doing foam. It's going better now. Until the next time. On there. And her hands, I will also foam. Maybe I should have done her hand first, actually. This actually has a little sticky out bit which is going to just need to tuck under there. So yes, I should have done that bit first, but it worked out just fine. And then finally, because she's already getting quite tall, I'll just glue this one on. And that's our Mary and Joseph and the baby Jesus. And this would look so nice just on a greetings card if it was a bit smaller on his own, rather than doing the giant sign, or just in a shadow box or something like that. It's a really nice individual illustration to use. We'll put that one over to one side, and next we are on to the wise men. Here are our kneeling wise men, and there's quite a lot going on here. So we'll move him to one side and we'll start with this one. And we've got the bottom red. And I think because this is going to end up a lot of dimension because there's two of the men, I might just glue these. Trying to decide. I think you could really get away with doing either. But it'd be nice for him to have some dimension. So actually, I am going to foam this bit. But this really is one that could be glued and it would still look absolutely fine. Right, line it up. Drop it down. And there's that piece. And then the one on top, I've done it from kind of a sparkly card. This will be glued. I'm going to be quite careful when sticking this one down because the lines in the cloak are quite narrow and I don't want my glue to smush out. Gently tap down rather than a hard push. And that's fine. Right, do his face. Oh, I just moved it all. Alright, turn the bottom layer of his face upside down and we've got another little circle to stick over the eye. Like that. And then I'm going to glue the rest of this on. There. And then his beard, because he's got that little bit which will come out in a minute, this one's more just for his hair, so this one can be glued on too. For this part of the top of the cloak, we'll foam this one. There, and then the tiny bit of his beard. So, oh, I just flipped it upside down. Am I ever going to be able to line this up again? This glues on, but you're only adding the glue on that top bit of foam. So just a little bit of glue on the bottom. Oh, I've done that the wrong way around. Line it up. There. Okay. His crown. Let's foam that one. I need some tiny pieces for this. There. Now we have his little gift. I'm going to foam the bottom piece. Like that. Glue the next bit. And then add a tiny bit of foam on both of his hands. Lovely. And now the second wise man needs to go on next. I'll foam this piece because we want him to look like he's in front of that first one. There. And next we have his face, which I'll glue his face and foam his beard. That's kind of what I've been doing for the others. So first he needs his eye bit going on there. And then make sure you get the angle right on this bit. I nearly just took it completely wrong. There. And I'll foam his beard. Actually, that was probably wrong because I've missed that piece. Because it should look like he's holding that. So I'm going to take this off whilst my glue's still wet and glue on these pieces. So sorry about that. Hopefully you can pick your glue up. Or if you're following the assembly guide as well, then you would have seen hopefully that I got that little bit wrong. There. And then this bit. That looks better. And now his beard. Okay. Next is his cloak, and I'm going to glue this because the arm is already raised out from the body with this brown layer, so we don't want to raise it out anymore. And then the detail layer we will also glue, thankfully, because of all these little details. Okay. And then just like with the top one, we'll foam this piece and the crown. Headdress and his sparkly gold crown. Perfect. All right, that's 2 wise men. I guess we need to do the third. Here's the third wise man, and again we'll move the bits apart so that we can get to the bottom. Not doing a very good job at this lining up. There we go. Okay. Glue on the next bit. Oops. Oh. Just dropped my glue through a hole in it then. Luckily it didn't land on what was already down on my table. That's why you should never hold your layers over themselves when you're gluing, and I do it all the time. Oh, I've made a bit of a mess. I'm sure it's fine. Okay. I'm going to that bit foams on the top. Looks like his hand's coming out at a really weird angle though. Oh, and just double check your assembly guide on that one. I think it's right. Okay. Oh, I was so convinced I wasn't going to mess this one up, and I have, because I've completely missed off his face. Oh dear. Okay, let's see if I can peel this off. Right, I'm not going to be able to get that all off, but I can peel off enough that I can just slide this face under. So proud of myself that I'd managed not to do this one wrong. Right. Slide that in. I bet you were looking, screaming at the video. You're doing it wrong. That's better. Okay. Right. Let's foam his beard. Right, so let's foam his headdress on just so he stays consistent with the other ones. Headdress, and finally the crown, which again will foam because all the other crowns were foamed. And there he is. A few problems along the way, but he ended up looking spot on. So that's great. And now our only characters left are the angels. Here's one of them. And these go together identically, the left and right angel. So what I'm going to do is I'll stick one of them together on camera so you can see, and then the other one I'll stick off camera because it's exactly the same, and I'm sure this video is going to be quite long enough without recording both of the angels. Start with this one. This is the one I'll do on camera. So once again, we'll move all these little pieces away. I'm running out of room with all these characters. She's got another little eye circle, so I mustn't lose that. And our very bottom two are the light gold and then the darker gold. This will be a glue layer. There, lovely, lovely. And next is her face. And again, there's a little eye just to stick on there. Okay. Trying to decide, do I want... I think I'll foam her. You could glue it. Either would work fine for this one. There are lots of pieces in the angels, perhaps more layers than any of the others. I used my first sheet of foam squares. I'm cheating now. I'm using one I've already started. So you could get away with gluing this one. Okay. And her hair I'll glue. Okay. Now what's next? Next is the blue that makes up her back sleeve. This one will be another glue layer. Then we have her next set of wings. I'm going to glue these two, otherwise it'll be too far out from that bottom one and I don't think it'll look right. I do like a lot of glue layers in a row. It's much quicker. There. And her dress as well, I'll glue these. We're getting quite a bit of depth in her anyway, just because there's so many sheets of card. And as we're so far out from her feet, I don't think it would look right if this was foamed too. Now we're just left with her arm. I will foam this one. Give it one little pop of depth in it. One there, and then the detail layer on top. Of course, is a glue layer. I wouldn't make you foam something like this. Okay, beautiful angel number 1. Finished. So now I'm going to pause my camera and go and stick the other angel together in exactly the same way. And once I've done that, we'll be on to the tricky bit of putting the base together. We're now on to making the base for the giant sign, and that's the very bottom pieces, which are these white ones. And because I was a bit worried that white on my white tabletop would be a bit hard to see, I've just put it on this wood background so that you can see what I'm doing a little bit clearer. Unfortunately, I can't zoom my camera out anymore, so you can't quite see the edges, but once everything starts overlapping, I think it's all going to fit on. Okay, so we've got these 6 pieces, and you see they've got all these weird and wonderful cutout shapes in them. That's how you know where to position everything. So we're going to be lining up the matching shapes. So for this one, you see it's got a triangle and a circle in that right-hand side, and it's going to match up to the triangle and the circle on this middle piece. So I'm going to overlap it so that those shapes perfectly line up. And you can also use any details along the top or the edges to help. And then take some washi tape or painter's tape or anything that's not going to damage the card, and just tape it down without moving it, and I just moved it. Let's put that back. And tape it down so that I don't keep moving things around as I line up the next piece. There we go. It's important to get these bits lined up as well as you possibly can, because this is what all the other colours of the background are going to rely on. So if this one isn't quite right, it means everything you put on top of it won't be quite right either. So now I'm going to do this right hand side piece, this angel, and again the triangle and the circle will overlap, and then I can line up her trumpet at the top to know I've got that on straight. And some tape on there. Going to put a bit on the side as well. Okay, if I move this down a bit, just so you can see that's what I've got so far. And now I can start on the bottom bit. So this bit here, I've got my rectangle and the circle to line up. And then I can also check that the palm leaves, let's move over, the palm leaves over here line up too. Next, the middle bit. This has got lots of bits to use as a reference. So all 4 of these should perfectly line up. If they don't, it probably means that something on there isn't quite right. So take a look at the other elements to see what's causing the problem. So I think it's my top ones that are causing the issue here. Alright, so that was a little bit out of shot, but I've now wiggled those together, and now everything's lining up a lot better. Once this white piece or pieces is done, the rest of it comes together much easier. So don't worry if this bit is a little bit frustrating, trying to get all those pieces lined up. You'll get there eventually. With a bit of trial and error, perhaps. Certainly I always need a bit of trial and error. But eventually it'll come into place. And then hopefully my last bit is going to line up beautifully, which it almost does. The palm trees are a little bit off, but not very much. So I don't think that'll be noticeable. For this one, I'm going to glue it down. Let's grab my glue, put this in shot a bit better, and then I will add my glue up to the cutout pictures on the layers that are still there. So all the way along here. Look at where it's going to overlap and make sure you don't put any glue outside of that. But as long as you don't go any further out than the cutouts, you'll be fine. If you're wondering what these two circles are for, that's where we're going to thread our twine through a little bit later. I recommend glue rather than double-sided tape for this, just because you've got the wiggle room to get it stuck down a little bit better. So there's that one. And then I'll do the middle bit here next. So I've already glued that one. So actually, this bit should come next. It's a bit hard trying to work out which one to add the glue to. Slide that one out, knowing that all the others are going to stay in the correct position. I need to keep remembering to put this in the frame so you can actually see. Right, on here I just need to move my tape, otherwise I'm going to glue the tape. This should line back up perfectly because nothing else has moved, which it does. This is my bit left that hasn't got anything stuck. So now I'm adding my glue along this piece and then down here to stick this other bit on. It doesn't matter which pieces overlap which, so that can be done in any order you want. There. Okay, now all my pieces are stuck on at least one side, so I'm going to let that glue really dry and then we'll flip it over and secure all of those join lines on the back. Now my glue's dried, I can turn this upside down. And now I'm going to tape along all of the join lines to make sure it's really secure, just with some regular sticky tape. Don't worry about going over your guide holes. Just make sure you don't cover these two holes in the top because we'll need those later on. But all of the others you can cover up. I can see now I've got this upside down. My palm trees aren't actually very well aligned. But never mind. I think it'll be okay. It's important not to skip this step because the base needs to be really well secured to itself. Otherwise, when it has all the other layers on top of it, it might come apart. And we definitely don't want that to happen. So there's my join lines. I'll turn this back round. Here we go. And now we can add on the next layer, which is the darker shade of blue. And this one is a lot easier because we can just glue it onto what we've already got. So first I'm going to put the pieces in order just to make sure I've got everything around the right way. You see we've still got our little hanging holes in that one. I'm mostly doing this to make sure I don't stick the wrong ones in the wrong place, but we're good. Okay, so start with the top left, and this time we can just add glue all over the back, so there'll be no need for the sticky tape on these ones, just lots of glue. Now I can line this up and it will match exactly to that white layer underneath. I'm going to do my corners first, because that's the important ones to line up so that you know your edges are going to be neat. So this is my other angel. There's that one. And then I'll do my bottom corners. And the bottom right. I did think about not doing the white layer and making the bottom layer this dark blue and then just sticking little circles of white behind all the star cutouts. But I decided in the end that it would be better to have the white, because then it just gives you that whole extra layer, that layer of card on the bottom, so it's going to be more stable, which is going to be great if you're propping this up against something on a bookshelf or a mantelpiece or something like that. That one. Now we can do the middle bits. And can't remember if I've done that. Yeah, okay. Your stars are going to line up on each side, so it does matter which way round you've got it. This is why our alignment was important on the white, so that we can still see all the stars through. I love how much they're popping out. That's really nice. And my last bit is just a rectangle. Lots of glue. And that will cover the remaining bit of white. Like that. And now we're ready for the next section. I'm going to, now this is nice and dark, I'm going to get rid of my bit of wood. And now I can put it on my work surface. Now it's a little bit further away from the camera, so I can fit the whole thing in the shot. Excellent. All right, next we've got the other layer of the blue. Again, I'm just going to check. This is going to be the right ones for the right sides. So all those little star cutouts should line up and show the white through. And then that's the donkey piece, the middle piece, and that one. And then again, I'll start with my corners. And this is glued again. Nice and easy. I told you the white bit was the worst. So you see my white from that very bottom showing through those tiny cutouts. You can see the stars. I'll do the other angel bit next. There. And now I'll do my bottom corners. That's my base now complete for the blues. And don't worry that you don't have the top bits of the palm trees covered up. That doesn't matter. We'll be covering that in a later step. So I believe the next thing we need to do is to add the twine. I'm just going to double check that that's not included on the next bit. No, so it's twine time. If you're adding twine to hang this up or ribbon or anything like that, now is the time to do it. You don't have to add any. You could just prop this up by itself. It won't stand up by itself, but you could lean it up against something. But I like to add some because even if you decide not to use it, you can always cut it off later. But it'd be difficult to add at the end if you didn't put it in now. So I'm going to cut a long amount. You need something strong that's going to be able to hold all this cardstock. And then I'm going to thread one through there. One through there. And I'll tie it at the end when I know how long I want it to be. So I'm just going to leave it loose up there. And have that there, and then we'll cover this up with the next bit, which is the gold section. So you'll see with these bits, it covers up that twine, and these bits will be put on with foam, so it will have room underneath to hide that twine. What I will do though is add some sticky tape just to help to push it down. There. Next, we're on to the gold. This gold is another layer or section that has the little lines so that we know where to line it up, because we need to glue all these bits to each other so that we can then foam it onto the giant sign. And the reason for that is if you just tried foaming one bit at a time, it's going to be really hard with the overlaps. So we'll glue it first. But luckily this is easier to glue because we can line it up against what we've already done to get the base idea of where everything goes. For these pieces, I'm more worried about the edges looking correct than the holes. So if you've got to choose between perfectly lined up holes or perfectly lined up edges, go for the edges because that's the bit that you'll actually see. Okay. I'm actually going to trade that bit of tape. Put it here. And glue this bit on. If you're using metallic card like this, especially if it's white core, so it's white on the back, the glue can cause the colour to run. So be careful when doing it that you don't get any glue anywhere it's not supposed to be. And also just watch your fingers, because if you touch any of the bits where the colour's running, it'll get on your fingers and then you might accidentally put it somewhere it's not supposed to go. And just put this one on top because that's going to join everything together. Now once again, I'm going to wait for that to completely dry and then turn it upside down and add sticky tape across all the joins. And again, don't worry about the tops of the palm trees not showing. It wouldn't have fitted on the same bit of card, so I decided just to leave that off because it's going to be covered up with something else later anyway. Right, this is now dry-ish, I think. The metallic card does seem to take a lot longer to dry, so be careful. There we go. Now I can go over my join lines again with my sticky tape. Next it's time to add the foam squares, and it's going to need a lot. If you don't have many foam squares, you could glue these bits too instead of foaming them. But it really does look better with the foam because it gives that wonderful dimension between the stable and the background. So yes, it's a little bit costly on all those foam squares, but in my opinion, it's definitely worth it. And of course, you can put this away and use it year after year. So even though it does take quite a lot of material to use to make, you've then got it for all of your future Christmases. I store my giant signs in a big plastic under the bed box with a lid on it, so it keeps it nice and dry, secure, away from the sun because it's a opaque box, the sunlight can't get in. And I've got some that are now on their 3rd or 4th year of being used, and they still look great. So there definitely are ways to keep them. One thing I don't recommend is keeping them in a garage or anywhere outside that's not really temperature controlled and gets cold in the winter and damp as well, because I did have some layered cardstock designs that I kept in the garage in the UK, and even though they were in a sealed plastic box, they did still end up getting damp and all the card warped. And they started to smell a little bit where the damp had got in. And I ended up throwing those away. So if you can keep them in your house somewhere, in a box, away from the sun, that'll be the best possible way of keeping your giant signs or any paper craft projects nice and safe so that you can use them year after year. Right, that's all the foam. Now to peel the tops off to get at all that stickiness. I've taken all of my backing off now, but I'm actually just going to add some little foam squares into the edges of the palm trees and also the star on the top, just to make sure that they also get that stability to the bottom. There, okay. Time to stick this massive piece on. Line him up. And this one, it is important just to drop it down gently because you'll probably need to move it. So what I've done is I've got my two ends settled, and then this bit's bending a bit because I've stretched the card. So I'm just going to lift the middle section up and then let that drop back into place. And that's looking good. Phew! Right, next gold bit. This one, you can either glue it or you can foam it. If you want to have some depth in the sort of light bursts, then foam it, but I'm going to glue it. It's already got a lot of extra depth coming with all the characters, and we've still got the stable to go on top. So I'm happy to glue this one. These pieces will cover up any remaining holes, all our little guide holes, so you won't be able to see them anymore. Got myself a bit confused on which way around I was supposed to be gluing this one. So make sure you do check, because there is a right and a wrong way. You want to make sure that these little bits, these cutouts, line up, and also this bit, then you'll know you're doing it the right way. My piece doesn't quite line up everywhere. It's very nearly, there's a little overlap, but overall that's actually come together really nicely. And the next thing to do is to add, finally, our palm trees. So again, I'm just to make sure I've got them the right way round. And we've also got some bits for the top of the stable. That will go there and there. And you shouldn't need to add foam on these top bits because it's only a little area. It's not going to dip downwards. Just make sure that you don't glue. If you're gluing on the back of here, don't glue the bits that's going to be overlapped. I'm actually going to glue the gold one, then I know it's in the right place. That one, and also the one over here. Beautiful. And then these two bits go. Now line up. So again, make sure you've got the right side. It'll match perfectly. And then these two don't overlap, so I'll just join in the middle. Don't worry if there's a little gap in your star because that'll be covered up later. Now this is looking great. We've only got one oversized piece left to do. Oh no, two kind of. We've got the stable and then the sand, but the sand's not too bad. Onto the stable. This is once again one that's got little guidelines so you know where to put things. And I'm going to glue these bits together. There's not an awful lot of overlap, so be careful to make sure that you don't accidentally put glue anywhere it's going to be seen. Once again, on this one, it's more the edges that are more important than the shapes. So on this one, my triangle's not lining up that great, but everything else is lining up. So that's the more important thing here. My glue's not liking this card very much, I think because it's quite fibrous. So I'm just going to stay here for a bit with my hands pushed on until that glue holds. Then we'll turn over and do the sticky tape down the join lines again. In fact, whilst that's drying, let's add our angels. Ooh, this is not liking that glue at all. I'm going to add heavy things. Heavy things always help. Right, angels. So these will just be foamed to fit the angel silhouettes on top. Then this lines up. One. And now for the second angel. Right, this one is gonna go. Oh, my glue is still not drying. Oh, you know why? It's because there isn't actually any glue on that bit. User error there. Oh, just stuck my angel to the side. It's all going wrong. Right, angel. Okay. Turn this over. And add my sticky tape to all the joins. Be careful you don't put the tape anywhere over the edges where it's going to be seen. Some of these join lines are quite small. That should be enough. Now I can add my foam. Where is it? Here it is. I think I'm going to need more than this for the rest of this. Let's... Whew. I think that one actually took me the longest. Hands are getting tired from all this sticking. Right. Gently lie it down. Oh, it's not straight along the bottom. I'm so close to. Stable done. Our only overlapping bit now is the sand along the bottom, which will be just glued. Again, I like to do the two ends first, because that's the bits you'll really notice. And then the middle bit, we can move about a bit on that overlap. Beautiful. Can put the lid on my glue now because we're all done with that. The end is in sight. We just need to add on the characters. So that you didn't have to watch me add foam squares for the next 15 minutes, I've already added them to all the backs of all of the people, so I can just turn them around and stick them on. You see I've put my foam squares in the middle as well as just around the edge. We want these to be really, really evenly stuck. Ah, it looks so good. This is definitely going to be amongst one of my favourite designs, even though it's taken us a very long time to get to this stage. Oh, got my hair in there. Let's just get rid of that. Okay. I love how all the seams are hidden on this one as well. There's hardly any visible once the characters are on, which is great. Shepherd and my donkey. Then last but not least, the shining star at the top. Okay, and we're done. Giant nativity sign with an absolute ton of cardstock and foam squares, all finished and absolutely stunning. I hope you enjoyed this video on how to make this giant off the mat nativity scene. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel for loads more Cricut crafts and Christmas fun. I hope to see you tomorrow for day 12 of the Christmas Craft Countdown. Don't forget, the link to get the cut files for this project is craftwithsarah.com/Christmas23, but it's only free to download for 24 hours after this video goes live. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!